Hi everybody, welcome back to Read and Reread. I'm Angelia and today I'm here with another edition of Friday Reads. I have 3 books to talk about today. But first, let's just immediately digress into other things. So as you can see, I've got a couple of pieces of holiday wear back there. I got my dorky Christmas clothes out and washed them and freshened them up, so they are ready. And they are going to be coming to you in video after video because since I retired last year, I don't have any opportunity to wear them to school. So as I have mentioned many times, I am a retired elementary librarian, and this was like the best time of year for story times and wearing really dorky holiday clothing that I mostly have found at thrift stores, but I just really love it. And so I'm going to wear it in my videos and probably out on the town, much to Stephen's chagrin. But also, I kind of miss, I don't miss uh, most of what is going on today in teaching, but I really do miss story time with the kids. And I really miss Christmas story time. So I'm going to just bring a little bit of that spirit to YouTube for my own pleasure, and I hope that maybe you will enjoy it as well. All right, in this week in viewing, we're kind of in between shows. We did watch the new Enola Holmes movie, and that was fun. They are based on some children's books, so there is kind of a kind of like a 6th grade romantic vibe in them, but it's really cute, and we enjoyed that. And then now we're kind of like, we watched an episode of what is it called? The Cabinet of Curiosities, that is like Guillermo del Toro's kind of project where I think there's 8 different like 1-hour creepy little mini movies. So we watched the first one of that and it was okay. I don't know. It was. So anyway, we're still watching. I think there's a couple episodes of the Bake Off left, and then we are adrift and showless. So if anyone has a comment about something good on Netflix. So on to the books. All right, first of all, when last we spoke, I was reading, I had just started Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. Now, I had a really curious experience with this book. I read it really fast, like I just kind of gobbled it and inhaled it in a couple of days. I couldn't put it down. And then when I got to the end, I wasn't sure how I felt about it. Like I just left a little bit frustrated. Let me back this up and just tell you what it's about a little bit, and then a couple of thoughts about it. And I can't go too far into it without spoilers, but this book has been on my mind all week. I have thought about it a lot after finishing it. So it is set in the world of gaming and game creators, and it is about a friendship between Sam and Sadie, who meet as middle school age children at a hospital where Sam is he's there because he has a severely damaged foot from a car accident, and Sadie is there because her sister's being treated for leukemia. And Sam and Sadie bond together over gaming, and she finds out that he hasn't really talked to anyone in weeks or months since his accident, and she kind of brings him out of his shell, and they form a friendship. But there is a catch that I cannot divulge because it would be a spoiler. Then they lose touch, and then years later in college, they run into each other again, and the friendship is rekindled, and they also form a professional relationship, and they develop a giant hit game. So they're like young wonderkins, and they develop this game, and a third person comes on board in the friendship and professional relationship here, who is Mark's, Sam's college roommate. Then the book continues on, going over the years. There's the professional stuff, there's personal stuff, and the book is sort of presented as being this ode to this long-running friendship, But one of the things that really frustrated me was that I think if you add it up, they spend more years being on the outs than the ins in this book. And they are both, Sam and Sadie are both really complicated, annoying people. And they're gifted, they're brilliant, they're creative, but they both have lots and lots of personal idiosyncrasies or different kinds of baggage and all kinds of things that complicate the relationships both personally and professionally. And so there's so many times where I wanted to enter the book like interrupting chicken and just like make them sit down together and sort out some crap. Like there was so many frustrating times where they did not communicate, or they thought about something and they didn't say it, or they sat around harboring resentments, and it just drove me crazy. But then after I read the book, and as I kept coming back and thinking about it, I thought this is really the genius of the book, that it does linger with you, and you do keep thinking of other things, and you do go back and forth in your mind about whose fault really was this conflict and that. And there's a lot of interesting things in here about Sadie as a woman in an industry dominated by men, and how she is constantly, her contributions are like undercut or underappreciated in the gaming community at large. And then there's just a lot of things. My favorite character is Marks, and he is just a jewel of a person, and the only person in the story who really approaches everybody without the extra layers of resentment and crap that kind of filters into other people's dynamics. But anyway, I can't say too more about it without spoilers of what happens in the story. But it was like this book was like a Trojan horse. Like I read it, my first thought was that was not satisfying, and then the amount of time I've spent thinking and going back over these characters in the past week, that I decided actually it really kind of did a number on me. So I still have zero interest in the whole gaming aspect of it. I just kind of lived through it and survived. But very interesting story of these relationships. And that's all I can really say. If you have also read it, let me know what your take was on it. But it just kind of snuck up on me slowly after I read it. I think the last time I really remember a book doing that so much was Atonement. That one also did that to me, where I read it and I was like, I don't think I like what happened here at all. And then it just kind of stayed and took up a residency in my mind and became really good after the fact. So that was my experience reading Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. Then I shifted over into one of my nonfiction selections for this month, and I read Last Call by Elon Green. I keep wanting to say Elon Musk, and that would just be terrible if he had written this book, but it's Elon Green. And this is a true crime book. The subtitle is A True Story of Love, Lust, and Murder in Queer New York. Now, what this book is about essentially is the last call killer, who was a serial killer in the 80s and 90s. And he would pick people up in gay bars and murder them. The bodies would be found later, dismembered and in trash bags. But the way that the author handles the materials, what makes the book really good. So on one level, it reads like a thriller, because you read these scenes and people are going missing and turning up dead, and you don't know, like I didn't know anything about this case. So I didn't know going in and starting to read it if the murderer was going to be found, or how many people it was going to deal with, and anything like that. And you do get answers to some of these things, but not everything when you read this book. So I don't want to give that part away, because on that level, it read very suspensefully. But on another level, it's a social history about about the scene, about the gay bars in New York City and also in a few other places, like the places that the different men came from growing up. And Elon Green, he takes each known victim and he creates a portrait of that person, about who they were, the people in their lives, who there is who misses them. And he interviewed them and went back over old documents, and he put together a story. And he also put together a story of the history of the bars and their role in the community as a safe place and a social place for the gay residents. And parallel to that, he has the history of the persecution and the hate crimes against the community, the underwhelming response from the police department, and also the role of some activists and support communities during the time period. And it's all coming in the wake of the AIDS epidemic, which has decimated the population in this queer community, and also heightened the atmosphere of homophobia and hate crimes. So all of that boils together to create the backdrop. And he creates very vivid scenes of a couple of the establishments that people went missing from. And in fact, the Townhouse Bar is still kicking. It's still going in Manhattan. He focuses on the victims, and he doesn't really get very far into information about the murderer until pretty late in the book. So that really the main focus is on the community, the scene, the bars, and the people. And I learned a lot. I mean, I lived through this time period, but in a different place and in a different demographic. So it was very interesting to me to hear about a little bit of New York history that I didn't know a whole lot about. So that was Last Call, which was very good. And then the last book I read this week was The Colony by Audrey Mcgee, including my little interlude at the beach the other day. And this too, these were just such different books, but they were all really good in their own way. All right, a lot of people already know what this is about. It was on the Booker long list. This is a really good example of what prize lists and best of lists and things like that bring to me as a reader, because I took a look at this when it was on the Booker long list. I read what it was about. It sounded like, well, I don't know. I guess it didn't really jump out at me. If I had just seen it sitting in a bookstore, again, it might not have grabbed my attention. But the momentum of people reading it and talking about it and really being enthusiastic about it made me give it a chance. And what I would have missed if I did not read this. So this, of course, takes place in 1979 in a very, very small island off the coast of Ireland. Very rocky, windy, rainy, cold. It's supposed to be summertime, but the whole thing is just like rain and lashing winds. But there's a small community there, and they're one of the last communities that has mostly unsullied Irish language. So they speak a particular Gaelic dialect, and into this community come two people for the summer. One is an English painter who wants to go, and he has a idea of having peace and solitude, and he's going to paint landscapes of the rocky cliffs, and he has something in his imagination about what this summer is going to be like, and I think he is surprised by what he gets instead. And there's a very funny opening scene where he decides to come across in this rowboat instead of taking the larger boat ride that's available that passengers usually take. But he thinks he wants this rustic, authentic experience, and they try to talk him out of it because they can just take one look at him and see that you're not going to like this. But he insists, and even just getting into the boat, he's all been out of shape because his feet got wet, and the guy's like, well, it's a boat, and then they go across, and he's violently ill, and anyway, so he's just a mess from the beginning. he kind of acts like he has booked a stay at a elite bed and breakfast. He doesn't like how the furniture's set up and the lighting's all wrong, and he can't understand that, you know, you have to go and eat at the time they set the food on the table, not just like when you feel like having it delivered. So he kind of gets off on the wrong foot with people. And but then he gets kind of going into a rhythm, and he starts to form a kind of a friendly relationship with James, a teenage boy who really would like to get off of this island and not follow in the fisherman footsteps of his male relatives. And he develops an interest in the artist and in art itself, and wants to start trying his hand at some drawing and painting. So everything's going up kind of okay, and then the Frenchman arrives. So a French linguist named Masson shows up, and he is doing a longitudinal study. He's been coming for several years, and he's studying this language. So, you know, what Lloyd the painter wants is quiet and peace and isolation. What Masson wants is everybody speaking in Irish and none of this influence of the outside world and the English speaking coming into the picture. So they're both really upset about each other's presence, and it make it even worse. They're like, they've booked what they turns out to be like adjacent cottages, and they were not told about each other. So the conflict has arrived. And this story is juxtaposed with excerpts of terrorist acts that are happening on the mainland because the troubles have commenced. And the people on the island are hearing the radio broadcast about these events. So they're talking about it, they're hearing about it. There's a sense of just the tension everywhere and on lots of levels is brewing. And then it also has to do with the tensions and problems brewing within each individual person. And we get to go around and hear from some of those people, you know, kind of their interior thoughts. So this is one of those books where you describe it and maybe it doesn't sound particularly gripping, but it just is kind of mesmerizing. And the way that it ends is one of those endings where you know this is the ending you knew was coming. Doesn't mean that you're happy about it, but it was kind of like the way that it would probably be. So enough said about that, but I did love this book. I thought it was really good. I'm very happy about what I read this week. It made me think. I transported into different environments, different places, different times. I learned things outside of my own experiences. So there was just lots of things to think about in the books this week. And so I really enjoyed this reading journey. I think that next I'm going to roll it back a little bit and hit a reread that I've been wanting to do and read The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton. So I think I'm going to pick that up and start that today. And so that'll be included in next week. And I don't know what I'm doing after that. I have a lot of things on deck, so it'll kind of be a surprise what I pick to follow up on that. So that is what I read the week that was. Let me know your thoughts about any of these books in the comments below, or what stood out to you in your reading this week. And I hope that you have a wonderful weekend in store. That's it. Have a great day. Bye.